As you already know, the cardiovascular epidemic is going on, and India is one of the leaders of the world. We have 60% of the cardiac patients of the world residing in our country. So India is shining, but it is also shining for other reasons, which we may not be very proud of. So, since cardiovascular diseases are raging as an epidemic, and especially in our country, Asians, South Asians, Indians are in the limelight because we tend to get the disease 10 years before the other ethnic populations of the world, and we also tend to get a severe form of disease, a more aggressive form of disease, and we don't tend to do so well once we get the disease also because survival is not as well as it is in the Western population. So the risk factors we know because this epidemic is being driven by the increase in the risk factors, and the two driving epidemics behind the epidemic of cardiovascular disease are the diabetic and the obesity epidemics, which are directly related to our lifestyle. So the focus from the traditional risk factors, blaming the genetics, blaming our ethnicity, is now shifting towards lifestyle. Because we know that the sudden increase in numbers in the last few decades is primarily due to the changing lifestyles. So we know the 9 traditional risk factors, modifiable as well as non-modifiable, which we use to try to explain the occurrence of CAD in a particular individual. But very interestingly, please note in this slide that almost 43% have only one traditional risk factor, and many a times you don't find any risk factor because you don't talk about stress, which is a major risk factor. So many times we say, patients also say that I have nothing, I have been living an idyllic life, still I got a heart attack. What is wrong? I am not smoking, I am not non-vegetarian, I am consuming less oils and fats. So maybe stress is a risk factor there. But if you look at it, almost 60% of the patients have just one or no risk factor. So what is going on behind this? This clearly means that we have yet to solve this riddle of atherosclerosis completely. We do not know exactly what happens when a plaque ruptures or why it ruptures suddenly in a person who was apparently not having any risk factor or just one risk factor. So more than half have either normal or mildly increased lipid values, because during the last 1 or 2 decades, most of the focus has been on lipids and statins. For controlling lipids, we've been talking about statins. Trial after trials have come, newer and more potent statins are coming, and there is an enormous data with us about the efficacy of statin, and they are already being called as the wonder drug of this century because you not only reduce cardiovascular disease risk, they are also being found useful in other conditions like malignancies and even pulmonary hypertension. But we are forgetting that atherosclerosis is supposed to be also still occurrence of atherosclerosis is supposed to be a hypothesis. We still do not know how and when it occurs, how the deposition starts, what promotes it. Starts at the age of 1 year, we now know. So there are, out of many theories, inflammatory hypothesis is still on, and many a time we have blamed certain viruses, certain chlamydia like organisms, but nothing conclusive has been found as yet. But there is indirect evidence that inflammation does happen in the vessel wall, and inflammation is a component of atherosclerosis. We may not have the exact pathophysiological chart to display how exactly it happens, but HSCRP was the first marker which came in and which is now very clearly established as a marker of inflammation and which associates with cardiovascular risk also. Here you can see the Framingham risk estimate, which we use for assessment of 10-year risk of occurrence of an event in an individual. With the same risk category, if you add the value of CRP, the risk is increasing in proportion to the increase in CRP values. So CRP adds to the information from Framingham risk estimate. Similarly, LDL cholesterol values, which are currently the bane of all preventive strategies that we use. Reduce cholesterol, reduce the risk. Reduce LDL, reduce the risk. But here we see that if we add C-reactive protein value, HSCRP, high sensitivity CRP, along with LDL, we get incremental information, and the risk is in proportion not just to LDL value but also HSCRP, which means if there is an inflammation going on in the body, in the vessel wall, then the risk is much more. And this is still not included in the guidelines, although gradually we are recommended to be used as a marker of risk, but not evaluated as a routine measure in all the persons. We now know that it is a risk marker, but we do not know that reducing it will reduce the risk. This has not been proven till now. So this means inflammation is an important component of atherosclerosis, and how this occurs, part of the pathophysiological charts we all know, we keep seeing this in textbooks. The culprit is LDL, and the molecule oozes through the defective endothelium. If your endothelium is healthy, it does not allow entry of LDL, but if the endothelium is dysfunctional, it allows the entry of LDL inside. It also allows the entry of monocytes, which becomes macrophages. They ingest the oxidized LDL. So the first step is entry of LDL, the next step is oxidation of LDL, and then ingestion as a defensive response of the body. The monocytes become macrophages and ingest this oxidized LDL to protect the body. But somehow this becomes a maladaptive response. And in the process of trying to ingest more and more oxidized LDL, macrophages convert into foam cells, and they tend to secrete certain chemicals which we call chemokines or inflammatory mediators, which in the long run prove detrimental to the body. So the body was trying to defend itself, but it has ended up harming itself. So two important pathways are being investigated, which we'll be talking about briefly today. One is the nuclear factor kappa beta pathway, and the other is the kynurenine pathway. Need not to worry about the complicated terminology, just this is all theory, hypothesis. Maybe we may have something 10 years down the line. And this are the common chemokines implicated in pathogenesis of atherosclerosis: TNF alpha, interleukin 1 and interleukin 6. So basically, nuclear factor kappa beta and PPA gamma pathways are promoting atherosclerosis or inflammation, and kynurenine pathway is anti-inflammatory because body also has its own defense mechanism. We have coagulant pathway, anticoagulant pathway. Similarly, this is pro-inflammatory and this is anti-inflammatory pathway, which is also activated once this cycle starts. The body tries to prevent this also. We already have some drugs which are already acting on this mechanism. So this is the kynurenine pathway, which acts as the body's own defense mechanism against inflammation. And an important intermediary is 3-hydroxyanthanilic acid. We will be talking about it more, so this should be clear to us. So this is how the inflammation works, and the body tries to defend itself against inflammation. We already have evidence that statins have an anti-inflammatory role. For last 4-5 years, you may have known that in acute coronary syndrome, we always give high intensity statin therapy, 80 milligram of atorvastatin or 40 milligram of rosuvastatin at the time of acute coronary syndrome. If it is going to reduce LDL, what is going to happen at the time of acute event? Why should we give it at that time? Because it has been clearly demonstrated that there is mortality benefit, and at the time of event and continuing for around 4-5 years, because of its anti-inflammatory activity. So statins have an anti-inflammatory activity. They prevent the oxidation of LDL, reduce quantity, of course, that is the main action, but it also acts as an anti-inflammatory role. Similarly, we have thiazolidinediones, which have, by inhibiting the PPAR gamma pathway, reduce this nuclear factor kappa beta activation, and activation of platelets and aggregation is managed by antiplatelet agents like aspirin, clopidogrel. We are all aware of this. So now research is going on if we can develop new drugs to inhibit this inflammatory pathway and activate this body's own anti-inflammatory pathway. So we are working on nuclear factor kappa beta inhibitors. An example is curcumin. And we also have examining the role of 3-HAA, which I am going to talk about. So this is how nuclear factor kappa beta pathway works. It is already present in the cytoplasm, but it is inhibited by an inhibitory molecule. So it remains in an inactive state. Once any inflammatory stimulus like oxidized LDL or chemokines release, they come. This inhibitor is broken away and nuclear factor becomes active, and this active factor enters the nucleus. So this is actually a transcription factor. It transcribes the formation of new molecules, new proteins, which are the inflammatory mediators that we know, like TNF alpha, interleukin 6, interleukin 1, and also HSCRP. So these are mediators of inflammation, and these are what cause inflammation. Certain adhesion molecules are also released which facilitate the entry of more monocytes into the subendothelial region. So this is how it works, and this is how it causes inflammation. So curcumin is a molecule which is being researched. It has reached stages at animal level. Studies have been done and shown to be of use. So curcumin, we commonly know, we are going to eat it in a short while, is available in turmeric. So this is what imparts the yellow color to the turmeric that we use. And Ayurveda has been replete with beneficial properties of turmeric in cancers, in common cold, other conditions. But now research has shown that the curcumin is the active molecule within turmeric which is actually useful. And it acts by inhibiting the activation of NF-kappa beta. So it prevents translocation and further steps are all blocked. So curcumin is likely to have a potent anti-inflammatory role in the future. It is already being studied in the use of chemotherapy, the effect of chemotherapy on cardiac contractility. So cardiotoxicity of anthracycline derivatives used as chemotherapeutic agents, and curcumin has shown to be beneficial in preventing the cardiac toxic effects of these chemotherapeutic agents. It has also been studied in hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, mainly in animal models, especially rats, and some benefit has been demonstrated. So this is one aspect where research is going on curcumin. The other is the body's own anti-inflammatory pathway, and if we could activate body's own defense mechanism, we could inhibit inflammation in another way. So this is how tryptophan metabolism gives rise to kynurenine and 3-HAA, which acts as an anti-inflammatory molecule. And surprisingly, when the studies were done in animals, it was shown that it not only reduces inflammation, it also brings down the lipid values. So total cholesterol, total triglycerides was reduced, and HDL was found to be elevated in animal studies. So this is also being studied. 3-HAA effect on lipid metabolism, maybe it acts to the level of genes, just like NF-kappa beta. And not only for its anti-inflammatory property, but lipid lowering also. So this is very exciting to look at. These results were very surprising. It was not expected to come out that way. Now further research is being planned on these aspects. Primarily the cellular inflammatory cells like T cells are being acted upon and monocyte macrophages are being acted upon, thereby reducing inflammation. So 3-HAA is an intermediary in the metabolism of kynurenine pathway. Significant reduction in LDL, VLDL, chylomicrons, and elevation of HDL has been shown. Apart from reduction in HSCRP, so reduction in inflammation also has been shown. So these are several molecules which are also being studied for their role in reducing inflammation as an antioxidant and preventing atherosclerosis and occurrence of acute event, which primarily occurs, a plaque ruptures because of acute event, and acute inflammation is what is believed to cause the rupture of the plaque. So several of these molecules are being worked upon. Research is usually, you can see, phase 2 level only. We have to get human level studies with these molecules. So this is an innovation we're talking about, and this was something very different and something interesting. So we've chosen this topic this time. And despite optimal therapy with current drugs like statins, the risk remains. There is significant residual risk. So we have been talking about residual risk and what to do about it. Even after controlling all the known risk factors, there is significant residual risk even now. So we have to devise novel strategies, and working on these inflammatory mediators is maybe another way which will help us reduce mortality in cardiovascular disease in future. So thank you.